This video, I'm going to be going over how to calculate a square root by hand. This can be used for any square root that you have. Today, I've got this square root of 2,376.592. So we're going to start, and I'm going to show you this one method. It is long, and it requires a lot of calculations. It's not something I recommend to do every day. It's just important for you to understand how it's done so that you can see that the numbers never repeat themselves. All right, so let's go through this long and tedious process. First thing you do is when you write the number, you're going to write it underneath this sort of little I guess two lines that go together like that. And you're going to start with the decimal place. So you start the decimal place, and the number is 2,376 on the left side. And what you do is you put the numbers together in pairs from the decimal place and out. So 7, 6 is the first pair, and then you have 2, 3 is the second pair. And then you go outwards from that on the other side as well, and the first pair would be 59 or 59, and the next two digits would be 2, and there's no other digit there, so I'm going to add on a 0. And then I'm going to put the decimal place up there. So that's really how you set it up. Now once you set it up, what you want to do is figure out, it looks a bit like long division, but it's not really long division. It's the same sort of ideas where we're going to be working under here, subtracting and getting the next number and pulling them down. But other than that, the numbers that we use to divide in keep changing. All right, so first thing you want to do is find out what number, when multiplied by itself, gets as close to but not over 23. Well, you know that 5 squared is 25. That's too large, so the number underneath that would be 4. 4 squared is 16, and so that's the number you're going to use. And you put the 4 on top of that pair, and so 4 times 4 is 16, and you write the 4 down here for this first one, and then you subtract. And when you subtract here, you have 7, okay? So when you're going to go to the next, you now sort of like long division, you now pull down the next pair. So the next pair is 76. You don't pull out one number, it's the next pair of numbers. Now this is where things get a little different. What you need to do here, I'm just going to show this once, is that you take this number and you multiply that by 2. Now when you multiply that by 2, you get 8. That's easy part. Now you have a number here, and that number there is part of this digit here is part of this whole number. And that digit is going to be the same as the digit that is put up here. And what you have to do is you take this number, you multiply it by this to get the number that goes underneath here. And that has to be as close to 776 as possible. So that number in this case, if you tried 1 times 81 is 81. Well, that's too small. You know you can get closer to that. If you tried a 9, it actually goes over that, so that doesn't work. So actually the number is 8. Okay, so you will try this with your calculator or try it by hand, just calculating. So 8 and 8 goes there. Now what you do is you say 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 8 is 64 plus the 6 is 70. So now you subtract just like in long division, and you have 72. Now what you do is you take down the next pair, so that's 59, and you get the numbers on the side. Well, the number on the side, again, you multiply this by the whole thing now by 2, so 48 times 2 is 96, and then you have that blank. And that blank now will come up here, so I'm going to do this one in orange so you can see. And again, you need to figure out what number multiplied by, if you put it in here, we'll get, and you multiply that by everything, we'll get as close to this number as possible. And that number in this case is 7. So you put a 7 here and a 7 there. And it's a bit of trial and error. I'm doing this very quickly. It's not normally this easy, all right? So then you say 7 times 9, 67, and 7 sevens are 49, 7 sixes are 42, plus the 4 is 46, 7 times 9 is 63, plus the 4 is 67. And then you subtract, and when you subtract, you've got 11 minus 7 is 4. And so now you take the next group of 2 down, that pair, which is 20, and then you need to find out what number goes down here. So 487 times 2. Well, let's do that quickly together. That's 14. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17, and 2 times 4 plus 1 is 9. You again have that blank there, and that last blank is 5. So 5 and a 5 goes there, and when you calculate that out, you have 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 4 plus 2 is 22, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 is 22, 5 times 7 is 35, and plus the 2 is 37, and 5 times 9 is 45, plus the 3 is 48. And then you can subtract, and you get your remainder at the end. Well, actually, you subtract, and then you can keep going if you want, but I'm not going to keep going here. It's basically the same process over and over again. But I just want to make one point here. You can see that this number that you're actually working with constantly changes. And this is why when you come up with a square root, it never repeats, because you're always using different numbers. And it becomes much more larger and larger and more complicated. So that's really it. You don't have to memorize this, but if you try 1 or 2, you'll get to see what happens with calculating the square root, and it's kind of cool.